We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. It is needful to transmit the passwords from generation to generation. Not by things, but by the meanings of things. Some years back, I sat in my therapist's office relating some signs of progress and success coming into my life. She said, "Sounds like things are getting really good for you." To which I replied, "Yes, and that is why I feel so anxious." And she said, "Like how?" "When things start to get good in my life," I said, "I start to feel anxious, like the bottom's going to drop out." "Why is that?" And she was quiet a moment and then very gently said, "Because it seems it always has." Sure enough, as she guided me back through the course of my life as I had shared it with her, the pattern became clear. Most of the time, during my most formative years in my family, every time things looked like they were getting good, something awful happened. The bottom dropped out. And so I was conditioned to trust that any goodness coming into my life was a sign. Any abundance that was coming my way was a sign that it couldn't last and the bottom was going to fall out. That nothing could be too good for it to come crashing down. At my tenderest developmental stages, I became conditioned that when my life improved, I should not expect more, but brace for impending collapse. We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. Gradually, I came to understand how my young and as yet undiscerned life experiences taught me that whenever the nature of things improving around me, was improving, the meaning of those things was not increased abundance, but of things about to fall apart. You brace for the bottom to fall out, my therapist said, because it seems it always has. But, she said, it doesn't have to stay that way. And, she continued, we can start today to change your story. And so we did. Sure enough, right alongside those stories of impending doom in my life were also stories of times that things got good and did not crash. But I had not been conditioned to see those stories, to give those stories of achievement and abundance as much credence as the stories of failure and loss. I was conditioned to see the stories of abundance as the exception and the stories of failure and loss as the rule, rather than the other way around. We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. And it is needful to transmit the passwords from generation to generation. So let me note here that the reason I started therapy at that moment in my life is because my children were small and I wanted to be a better parent. When I announced that to my therapist on the first day, she smiled, because she knew I would discover that becoming a better parent was the side effect of becoming a better me. And that becoming a better me was the goal. And that by improving my understanding and embrace of the meanings of things that I had carried through my life, I would not only get better myself, but learn to transmit the passwords to my own children that their lives might be more abundant. And so little by little, determined but doubtful, I will confess, I set out to learn that things can indeed get good and the bottom doesn't have to fall out. and that the nature of the universe was not determined to deny my yearnings, nor to automatically fulfill them just because I wanted something, nor to wag its finger in my face to teach me a lesson when I messed up. No, the learning of any lesson was entirely up to me to accept or not, though I did begin to notice that there were patterns and things would come back and come back and come back again until the light would start to go on, and I would realize that if anything is going to get better, the change has to start inside of me. Sometimes I really hate that. Wait, I said sometimes. No, not sometimes, almost always. Still. Hate that. But these days, that resentment and resistance that rises up in me maybe lasts a day when it used to last decades. So it took a while, but gradually I learned it was my own fear of loss that kept me and kept my life from getting and staying better. Fear of loss kept me settling for less, materially, emotionally, and spiritually. I wonder if some of this sounds familiar to some of you, or maybe not. We can't get by looking at each other, really, what each other's stories are. But still, none of our stories are really all that unique. And that's one of the things we learn in beloved community. It's one of the things that brings us here to start with and back again, certainly for me, to discover that these things that draw us together are our stories. Coming into community, realizing we are not so different, that we are not so peculiar, and best of all, we are not so alone in this world we travel. So what if we started learning to settle for more? What kind of abundance might we experience if we learned that it is already here and already within our reach, already waiting for us, if we will let ourselves experience it materially, emotionally, and spiritually? Ah, now, preacher. That sounds a little bit too woo-woo for me. Does it now? May I be so bold as to say it's not woo-woo in the slightest. It is reality. Because it has so very little to do with all this out there, and absolutely everything to do with what's in here. Absolutely everything to do. Ah, but preacher, you may say, you're making it sound too easy. Am I now? My beloveds, I can assure you, it's one of the hardest things you will do. To shift from scarcity to abundance. It requires deep and sustained inner work with yourself and in community to change mindset from settling for less to settling for more. Because you see this world out there in all its struggle and its pain and its suffering and its conflict and its decay and its systems of privilege or punishment, that binary that we live in, that world needs us to believe there is never enough. It needs us to believe there is not enough of anything. Of food, or money, or clothes, or cars, or space, or time, or winning, or happiness, or love. The systems we inherit need us to believe in scarcity, so we will keep fighting each other for resources. So we will keep trying to elbow each other out of the way to get what we need because we think the earth doesn't have enough for us all when it has more than enough for every living thing the whole world over. Systems of privilege and punishment, of violence and conquest keep us trying to shove one another out of the way, believing there is an us and a them, when really there is only an us. It needs us to keep feeling that if you get ahead, whatever that means, then it means I must be falling behind. And so it keeps us selfish and afraid and grasping and living in a hoarding mentality in body, mind, and spirit, even when our deepest, most human yearnings scream out for connection with each other in these walls, outside these walls, within ourselves, and a connection with the divine by whatever name we know it, and the energy that feeds and fuels absolutely all life in the interdependent web of which we are a part, but only a part. It's always been shared. It's always been shared, and there has always been enough, and there will always be enough. If we can shift out of these socio-political and social systems of thought and behavior and policy and law based on deprivation that says we can't have more of anything, and if I am to have more, you must have less, and if you have more, then I must have less. And that is a lie, whether we are talking about the soup in our pots or the love in our hearts. What kind of world would this be if we began little by little? Because, truth be told, that's the only way we can do anything, is little by little. If we began little by little to settle for more and not think it's selfish and not think it wrong. What if we expected abundance rather than deprivation? We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. And now you say, preacher, it's pretty bold of you to preach about abundance after the week this world has had. And what may be before us yet. And you know what? I did consider throwing it out and starting over. Then I looked around and realized that what we may need right now, what I know I need right now, is the same kind of refocusing that therapist earlier in my life suggested. To see the story I hadn't seen. To see the abundance I hadn't been ready to know because I had only seen loss. To see the abundance beyond decimal places. See the abundance of compassion and sunlight and generosity and patience. Abundance of imagination and creativity and insight and ingenuity. Of possibility, of beauty in nature and books and art and music and in the faces of the people around us, right here and right now. The key to that vision, that new sight, to that door opening to a new story of abundance begins in gratitude for what is already here, that we have been looking past, grasping for more. We learn by the meanings of things and transmit the passwords generation to generation. I'd like a couple people to come help me here for a second. I'd like a couple people. Would you please pass these around? Coming to you is a way to express your gratitude as we launch our month of abundance here at River of Grass. Let's pause for a moment to ponder, what is it about this place that matters most? What is it about this place that offers us abundance that we see and that we don't see? What things, what meanings of things give us comfort, courage, and hope? And what passwords would we transmit generation to generation that this place may be a place of abundance for years and years and years and years to come, long after all of us, except for the tiniest among us, are gone from this place and they inherit what we made. Take a moment to write on this card how you live the meanings of things here. Kip, could you gather up? Anybody ready to pass them on up? Oh, I just flew, man. Thank you. If our folks don't make it back your way, there's a basket on the table in hospitality where you can drop your note. And back there are also envelopes if you happen to feel a little private about what you had to say. I don't know yet. My beloveds, in the name of this remarkable faith and this remarkable place, let us begin here and now to settle for more. And then, says the artist and educator Judy Chicago, and then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind, and then all will be gentle, and then all will be strong, and then all will be rich and free and varied, and then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many, and then all will share equally in earth's abundance. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will cherish life's creatures, and then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth, And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. I can see that. Can you? Won't you go with me? Let's make it true. Let us rise in body or in spirit as we sing, Come and Go With Me.